I don't know where we're going, Jim.
It's your program.
Well, do you have any more emails over there? Anything you wanted to talk about? Anything on your agenda?
Well, thank you for that pitch, Brian Last. Actually, that's what I told you earlier that I had, so that you would give me a segment, because in actuality, I'm going to flip the script on you, Brian. Wild card. I've got a segment that you have no forethought or foreknowledge about that I'm going to spring on you right now. Let's see how good you are. What is the recurring segment that we do on this program that everybody just loves and goes ape shit over?
Oh, geez, there's so many.
Well, there's so many running through your mind. Guess the program.
That's right.
That is where you take a program out of your collection, tell me the lineup, and ask me to determine the location and the year that it happened. But never in the history of this program, Brian Last, have we flipped this on its ass and me asked you the questions. And right here in public, if you will, I am daring you, challenging you, double dog daring you. You don't have a hair on your balls if you do not accept this challenge.
Yeah, I'll accept any challenge. I'm not worried about that. Whose programs are these from?
They're my collection.
They're from your collection, not some goofball sending in random things from home.
No, I don't deal with goofballs over here. So it's a goofball-free organization over here.
You would go and put your hands on your things and ruin your collection potentially just for me to embarrass you in this segment?
I put my hands on my things on a regular basis because I do it carefully, I'll have you know. Never know when something could bend, break, or fall off.
You're in charge of your fingers. We've already established that.
And I don't know how much embarrassing is going to be done around here. That's what we're going to perpetrate and find out. Right?
For the record, I've had 2 coffees today, but they were late and I haven't had vitamin water yet. So
Oh my God. So yes, what would the people say? What would the cult of Cornette out there, what would they say if on any one of these programs, if I was to say, well, when we play Guess the Program, I was to say, well, you know, I haven't had a Sprite Zero.
If you
hadn't had my vitamins.
If you hadn't had a Sprite Zero, we would have heard about it the entire show.
We probably wouldn't be doing the program. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's right.
But I wouldn't use it as an excuse to not know the date of a wrestling card.
That might be the only thing you would use as an excuse, now that I think about it.
Well, maybe I picked a bad for instance, but nevertheless, so you haven't had your vitamins and you've only had 2 coffees and you're going to try as best you can laboring under those handicaps, right?
Is this one program or a series?
This is a number of programs. Let's see how you do over the long haul. See, you start getting worried already, getting the limber tail over there.
I remind you, you're the star of the show. I'm the host of the show. That's what listeners want. They don't want the focus to be on me.
We're putting the focus on you. We're putting you on the spot. See how much you know there, pal.
All right, let's do this.
All right, let's start off with an easy one. I'll give you the card as you normally do for the opening match on to the main event. You tell me the year, or approximate year, and the approximate location. We'll start off with an easy one. Mike Romano versus Jerry Monahan. Next match. Jack McCarthy versus Sandor Zabo. Next match, Scotty McDougal, who is, of course, from Scotland, taking on Big Glenn Munn from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Huh.
And the main event, with a 2-hour time limit, Texas Cowboy Jack Russell versus Germany's athletic idol, Richard Schickat. 4 matches, main event, Schickat, Russell, Sandor Zabo on the card, as well as Big Glenn Munn.
Big Glenn Munn is the interesting one there.
Tell the folks why.
Well, the name...
Because he's Wayne Munn's brother.
That's right. Now tell the folks who Wayne Munn is.
Well, he's Big Wayne Munn. And that's the thing, is it's sort of like we've got a Jim Belushi situation going on here. Care to take any passes at this one?
So Dick Schickat and Sandor Zabo were on the same show. Sandor Zabo.
And I'll give you another hint. The promoter was Abe Feinberg.
I fucking know that name too. All right. So this is the 40s. It wasn't a world title, you didn't say, for the main event. It was just 2 hours?
It is not. It's just a 2-hour time limit match with Germany's athletic idol, Richard Schickat.
Maybe it is the 30s. 1939. Am I right on the year?
No, you are not.
All right, well, 1941, Minnesota. Yeah, I know it's not Minnesota. Where is it?
February 7th, 1933.
Wow, okay, I'm totally off.
At the Armory in Louisville, Kentucky.
Really? Who's the promoter?
Abe Fine. Well, I don't know. His name is most often spelled Finberg. So it could possibly have been Finberg, but I would say Feinberg. And that's an alternate spelling sometimes I've seen.
Right. Another spelling would be Fein Berg.
Yes, that's yes. That's there you have it. All righty.
Well, what else do you know about
embarrassed.
What else do you know about that card? I mean, do you know anything about what kind of crowd it drew?
Absolutely fucking no. Actually, this particular card, the only reason that I was able to get this is because Cosper did a lot of this research and everything, but this is hold on, I'm going to count. It's a weird, it's not a fold over like 4-page, it's a fold over 6-page, and it folds twice. And it's advertising a variety of events like Earl Carroll Vanities at the Memorial Auditorium in Louisville, February 3rd. The Kentucky Hotel, dance to the tuneful melodies of Milburn Stone and his orchestra. I don't know if it's the same guy that played Doc on Gunsmoke. There's a couple of other ads for hotels and shit. Then the wrestling lineup. And then it's an actual, there's also the program for, hold on, I'm trying to turn this carefully. Program for the Vanities with who plays all of the Earl Carroll Vanities with who plays all the parts and the various acts and scenes involved. So it's interesting. But
is that the oldest program from Louisville you have?
Yes, it's the oldest one I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've never seen one from the 30s, no.
But this was probably, I think, 2 years before Haywood Allen, who was an assistant to Feinberg, began the Allen Athletic Club, and it ran for a little over 20 years. I got another one.
What started messing with me was the whole young German idol thing. Just because of, thinking about the timing of World War II and then trying to think of Zabo. And that's what threw me off on the year completely. But
he's listed here as a 205-pound Hungarian champion, so he wasn't very old.
No.
And tickets, by the way, $1 ringside, 75 cents main floor, entire balcony 50 cents, ladies 25 cents. All seats plus 10% United States tax. And tickets were on sale at Goodman's newsstand. In those days, for something like that, the Armory, the later to become the Louisville Gardens, actually seated more people then in those days before it was renovated into a modern arena than it does now or did in its day. But for something like that, the research that Cosper has done, there would still be anywhere of 2,000 to 3,000 people to 5,000 people on a big show in Louisville, even back in those days. And the heyday, the biggest crowds, we've come to find out, were not even the biggest crowds consistently for the longest period of time were the Jarrett days. But there was a period between 1950 and 1955 when their big shows for the Allen Athletic Club under Francis McDonough, who took it over, were 8,000 and 9,000 people, which was way more now than the revamped Gardens could ever seat after the early 60s. So it was but that was with the national TV, and they'd bring in Thez versus Baron Leone. A rematch of the Los Angeles match was one of the Derby Eve spectacular matches that drew like 9,000 people.
We've seen shows where, discounted tickets for children if you're with an adult or something. What do you think about the idea of such a discount for women to get them into the show?
Well, that was common in the 30s because not only did women mostly not go to boxing and wrestling, but also they definitely weren't going to go unescorted. So the idea was, hey, you can bring your wife for a quarter if you come. And that, they would get a few more people in that way. But it wasn't just wrestling back then. And this was in the Depression.
Yeah, and TV would have changed that because once women started watching these wrestlers on TV, all of a sudden you had a whole new audience.
Right. And I don't have it in front of me to prove it, but I think there was special ladies admission prices to different variety of sports back then, or different varieties of functions. Anyway, I got another one for you. This will be a little easier. I was jacking with you on the first one. I think you'll nail this one right away. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The opening match, Rowdy Red Roberts versus Red McIntyre. The second match, Jim Caulfield versus Buddy Knox. The third match, Bibber McCoy versus, listen to this name, Angelo Sistoldi from Boston, Massachusetts. I believe this is a wrestling promoter's attempt at spelling Savoldi, but it was Sistoldi. The first main event, Helen Hild versus Teresa Tice. And the second main event, to a finish, Tarzan White versus Babe Zaharias.
I'm guessing it's early 50s. Red Roberts.
Opening match.
Is it Georgia?
You are correct.
Now I got to guess the year. That's where I'm not going to get it. And what led me there? What's led me to kind of the time period is just knowing it's actually Helen Hild being on the show and kind of knowing her history a little bit. 1951, maybe?
Oh!
50?
June 23rd, 1950.
Oh!
Paul Jones Sports Attractions.
Yeah, there you go.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. Okay, I didn't even know it was Atlanta. Okay.
Atlanta, Georgia, and obviously at the City Auditorium back then. And Helen Hild, obviously, for the folks who don't know, was Ted DiBiase's mother.
That's right.
And Teresa Tice was an established lady wrestler at the time who, in a couple of years from this, would meet and marry Ray Stevens and help in his early training. Babe Zaharias, who wrestled Tarzan White in the final main event, was actually George Zaharias, who was married to Babe Diedrichson Zaharias, who was the most famous female athlete in United States history. But as a wrestler, he sometimes used Babe Zaharias because I guess it was more name recognition, right? And a couple of items. In the cavalcade of new stars signed to appear here, young 218-pound Chattanooga dropkick artist Eddie Gossett.
Wow.
Will make his first make his first Atlanta appearance on Friday, July 7th.
Young and Chattanooga dropkick artist. Wow.
Yes, 218 pounds. Eddie Gossett, of course, would later become Eddie Graham. Also, in the Paul Jones's Cauliflower Gossip column, Gorgeous George, the Marcel Tough Man from the West Coast, defeated Don Eagle, the Mohawk Indian, for the Eastern and European heavyweight title.
If you had told me that, I would have immediately known 1950. That would have been a giveaway.
Because that was the double cross in Chicago.
That's right.
Buddy Rogers will meet champion Lou Thez at Wrigley Field, Chicago, June 21st. Lou Thez will appear here July 7th. Babe Zaharias and brother Chris have received several good offers to defend their tag team championship around Chicago. George Temple is wrestling on the West Coast. That's Shirley Temple's brother, was a wrestler, George. Anyway, so that you got that one pretty dadgum close there, pal.
I could have done better.
Well, let's see. Maybe you'll do better with the next one.
The program clues would have, what did you say the date was of the Georgia one?
The date was of the
Atlanta
the actual program of Friday, June 23rd, 1950.
Yeah, I would have gotten the summer of 1950 if you had told me Don Eagle and Gorgeous George.
Well, of course you would. But that was extraneous information, not part of the rules of our game here. You wouldn't be trying to make me cheat, would you?
Hey, I invented this game.
Well, in that case, then I'm allowed to change the rules. All right. The next card. Frank Townsend versus Bob Corby. Second match, Eugenio Marin versus Hombre Montana. Third match, Fritz Wallach versus Arnold Skoland. Next match, Miguel Torres versus Ted Lewin. And the main event, 2 out of 3 falls, Johnny Barrand and Don Lewin versus Dr. Jerry Graham and his brother Eddie Graham.
Fascinating. Okay. So Arnold Skoland being on the show and the Graham brother. Give me the card one more time, because there was something that made me think one thing, and then by the end of it, I thought something else. Can you give me the card one more time?
Frank Townsend and Bob Corby.
Yeah.
Hombre Montana, Eugenio Marin. Arnold Skoland, Fritz Wallach. Ted Lewin, Miguel Torres. And then the Graham brothers against Johnny Barrand and Don Lewin.
I was going to say the Texas territory, but this is the New York territory, I believe.
I will get, you are correct.
And I'm saying that because of the Graham brothers, because of Arnold Skoland, obviously. So this is New York. The Graham brothers are teamed up. Dr. Jerry and his brother Eddie. It's not, I don't think it's 57. It could be 58 or 59.
I need a final answer.
Yeah, no,
or even a question.
I'm actually trying to. I'm actually in my head. I'm trying to think if it's a spot show or if it's the Garden. I can't imagine that would be a Garden card. So I'm going to guess it's a show in New Jersey somewhere, and I'm going to go with it's 58.
Arg! Temple Hall, Highland Park, New Jersey, April 10th, 1959.
Fuck! Oh, come on! I was so close.
And next Friday night at Temple Hall, Highland Park, New Jersey was a Friday night town. Apparently, because next Friday night, you'll see Haystacks Calhoun and Red Bastien against Carl Von Hess and Judo Jack Terry in a tag match. A tag match. And other TV stars. Plus, the next night, a super-duper wrestling show at the Patterson Armory in Patterson, New Jersey on April the 18th. Order your tickets now. So you got the state, you got the fact that it was a spot show, and you were only a year off. So that ain't bad.
The Graham brothers teaming up in the Northeast is what helped me narrow it down, because there's a period where it's over and Eddie goes to Florida, even though Vince could still get him to come back if he wanted him. And there's kind of a main period where it's Dr. Jerry and his brother, because Jerry was the bigger star.
Well, let's go to another one and see how you fare. You're doing pretty good since that swerve I threw in on you at first. Here is the card. The first match, Lee Garcia versus Ken Cooper. Second match, Prince Omar versus Tito Carrion. The next match, tag team action, the Masked Medics number 1 and 2 versus Pedro Godoy and Pat O'Brien. And the main event, a handicap match, Chief Bigheart versus Swede Hansen and P.Y. Chung.
This is Jim Crockett Sr. I think. And I think that because of P.Y. Chung, actually, specifically. That's Tojo Yamamoto, before he was Tojo Yamamoto. And I believe that was what he used for, well, his run in the Carolinas.
Correct.
Now, at that time, I'm trying to remember if Jim Crockett's still at Johnson City. I'm just, in my head, I'm trying to figure out where his territory boundaries were for the general period of time I'm thinking. I know where they would go north and east, but it's definitely a Crockett show. Give me a couple of the matches again.
Well, the main event's Chief Big Heart versus P.Y. Chung and Swede Hansen, and the Masked Medics versus Pedro Godoy and Pat O'Brien. And Pat O'Brien is not Pat Malone, who we have learned used that name in the 40s and 50s. But it is there's a picture of him here, and I don't recognize the guy, but it ain't him.
And it doesn't list any manager for the Medics.
It does not list any manager for the Medics, nor are they is a manager in the picture of the Medics that is in this program.
Can you tell me if it's North Carolina or Tennessee?
North Carolina. See, when people second guess themselves sometimes they ought to just go with their first.
Johnson City was in my head for some reason. I guess because Tojo and Tennessee, it fucks with your head sometimes the way things come together.
But P.Y. Chung.
P.Y. Chung, I'm going to go, I'm going to get the year wrong. I'm going to go with 62, if not Greensboro, Charlotte.
Boom! Jim Crockett Promotions, the Park Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, August 14th, 1961.
Oh, man.
Again, you're right there. You're getting the territories. You're right there with the years, but not quite. But some of the ads, Crockett always had great ads. Because remember, the story was Jim Crockett Sr., there was a bar and grill that his office for ages was a special table in that business, and he would conduct all of the promotion business from there. Well, he's got a bunch of advertisements for restaurants, including the South 21 curb service restaurant and the Auto Burger 1 mile east of the Coliseum, 15-cent hamburger, 20-cent cheeseburger, 15-cent French fries, and milkshake. And all the drinks are either 10 or 15 cents. You can get lemonade, grape, soft drinks, hot chocolate. You know what the guy who owned that place said when he went home? What'd he say?
It's like a license to print money.
Championship Wrestling was seen on WBTV Channel 3, Saturdays 5:30 to 6:30. That was the strongest television station in North Carolina at the time. And also there was the Hickory House Restaurant with their special barbecue and curb service. Anyway, and Red Top Cab.
Any picture of Bill Ward?
A picture of Bill Ward, a picture of Jim Crockett. Stamey's Drive-In Restaurant has seafood and steak. All righty, let's go to another one. You're not doing too bad so far. Let's see if we can get you anything here. Here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The opening match, Rocky Montero versus Jack Armstrong. The second match, a get-even bout. Les Roberts from Australia versus Rocky Johnson from Nova Scotia is listed that way. A special attraction match for the first time ever in the United States, the All-Asian Championship. Karl Heisinger, who is a bleached blonde German fellow with a beard, but his build is from Chicago, against a gentleman named Ilkim Kintaro Oki.
This is the Olympic Auditorium.
Hold on. Fucking feeling froggy, aren't you? John Tolos and the Great Kojika.
Yeah, this is the Olympic Auditorium.
Versus La Pantera Negra and Tony Rocco. The main event, Fred Blassie versus the Sheik.
I'm going with, the year is going to throw me off because it could be any, Rocky Johnson, the Sheik is in there, Freddie Blassie, anyone Since I know exactly where it is, can you tell me who's a champion? Is Blassie the America's champion?
It's not a title match. It's a grudge match.
Grudge match.
It is not for the title.
Who's Rocky Johnson's opponent?
Les Roberts, who he worked as Dingo the Sundowner. He's an Australian fellow.
And what was the tag team match?
Tag team match since you've already got the Olympic Auditorium, for the America's tag team title, La Pantera Negra and Tony Rocco versus John Tolos and the Great Kojika.
Bob Barnett hated Tony Rocco. His least favorite wrestler ever. I'm going to get the year wrong. I'm going to go with 70. It's either... I was going to say it was either 71 or 72, but it could be earlier, especially with Rocky Johnson being there. I'm going to go with 69. Just throw a number out there.
Oh, my God. You said 71, 72, 69, June 26, 1970.
Fuck. God damn it. I apologize to the Los Angeles historians out there.
And if you join the Olympic Discount Club for $2, you get a discount on all the Wednesday night wrestling events. You get one ticket with each one purchased. And if you buy one and receive the one next to it, or you can buy one and receive the one next to it for only $1 on Big Friday mat cards. You get the wrestling news delivered free to your house.
Hey, all right.
And for $2. But they have one of the cards to show you what you get when you get the membership, and it's written in handwriting, sample only, like people were trying to clip it out of the program and turn it in. And here's one I know you're going to get. Here's one I think you'll really like. This card.
Oh, that trick never works.
Yeah, well, this one will there, fella. The opening match. Bill White and Ed Wiskoski versus Roy Lee Welch and Bob Orton Jr. You might want to take some notes on this one.
Florida.
I'm not done
Keep going.
yet.
Keep going.
The Infernos, managed by J.C. Dykes, versus Big Bill Dromo and Jerry Oates.
Georgia.
Rocket Monroe versus Bearcat Brown.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in Georgia right now.
Sputnik Monroe versus Tiger Conway Jr.
See, once again, that could be Florida. What's next?
The Medics.
These guys
probably not the same ones as earlier in the program, versus Eddie and Mike Graham.
That would make you think, ding, 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 it's Florida. However, based on the time period, it could be when they were going up to Georgia to help out. But keep going.
Mr. Wrestling 2 versus Billy Spears.
And it is Atlanta, Georgia, maybe the Omni. What's the next match?
For the United States Championship, the Sheik, managed by the Grand Wizard, versus Bobo Brazil.
Okay.
And by the way, that is interesting because have you ever seen the Sheik build as being managed by even though Abdullah Farouk was the Grand Wizard, it was a dual personality.
Yeah.
But the Grand Wizard, at this point in this place, had more magazine publicity than did Abdullah Farouk. This is a mask at stake match for a title with no time limit, no disqualification. Cowboy Bill Watts, the champion, versus Mr. Wrestling Tim Woods.
Bill Watts, the champion, Georgia. It's either the North American Championship there, or that was in Florida, or okay, keep going.
Next match, the finals of a Cadillac tournament. There is no time limit. This is a round-robin three-man tournament. The winner will drive away in a 1973 Cadillac. And the way this match works is the three guys...
I was going to say 73 for the record.
Hold on. Oh, I just gave the goddamn year away, didn't I?
Yep.
Well, nevertheless.
But let me stop and explain how I would have said 73. It's obvious to me that it's a Georgia show. It's obvious that it's during the war, and it's obvious that it's before Jerry Jarrett was booking. So that puts it in 73.
And also, I knew you were going to know this, but I wanted to get to, but I gave the goddamn Cadillac thing away. But anyway, the way they determine this is they flip coins, and the odd man sits out. The two guys with it match the coin flip wrestle a match, and whoever wins that wrestles the odd guy. And one man has to win 2 falls. So if the odd guy then beats the guy that just won, then the first guy gets back in and they go till somebody wins 2 falls, which nobody does anymore. And it'd be a lot easier to understand than this goddamn 18-man clusterfuck. But anyway, Bobby Duncombe versus Bob Armstrong versus Bobby Shane. And the main event, extra added match, NWA ordered lumberjack match, Norvell Austin versus Dandy Jack. Not Dandy Jack Donovan, but the manager Dandy Jack.
Crawford?
I believe that was his last name, I think. But you've already said it, the Atlanta Omni, and the date, Friday, May 18th, 1973. But do you know what's special about that particular event?
May 1873. It's the first Omni show.
That is the first Omni show. And this program that I hold in my hands that you can hear is from Gordon Soley's personal collection.
Wow.
I got it at one of the fan fests from his daughter and son-in-law that were there that had written the book and etc. And I got the first and second Omni events from his personal collection. And this was a big deal because at that time, that was the biggest indoor arena that had ever run for wrestling in the South, right? 1973. And it was the Omni was pretty brand new at that point.
The Omni ended up being a game changer, but also being something that in the long run hurt the company because when you didn't have the city auditorium and you had to run the Omni, it cost a lot more money.
Yeah, but what they started doing was running the city auditorium every Friday night for 3 weeks, and then the Omni, the big spectacular with outside talent, would be once a month. And the auditorium seated, 6,000 people, so it was more affordable and it was easier, and then you went and did more than 6,000 people for the big show, but when they closed the city auditorium, that's when things went to hell because now they couldn't, they did a few times try to run the Omni every week. Not for long, but they couldn't run a building of that size weekly and sustain, it was unsustainable as far as the rent. And you couldn't do, even when their business was hot, 15,000 people every fucking week. So they had to back up to every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, and they lost the momentum of the regular fans' ticket money, and that combined with the extra rent, that's why they ended up going to intermittent spectaculars, but it wasn't, well, not intermittent, they were still there at least once a month, but it wasn't the schedule it used to be.
Considering what Nick Goulas ended up doing, building his office, again with cash, how come more wrestlers, considering the political relationships they had when they were promoters in a local town, why didn't they just build their own buildings? When a city auditorium went down, why didn't they spend a few bucks, find a politician to work with, and build a 5,000-seat building somewhere? I know it sounds crazy to think of it that way, but if your business depends on that, I don't know.
Well, but there's a wide gap between I'm going to build this nice little office for myself over here for 150 grand 40 years ago or whatever it was, and I'm going to build a 5,000 or 6,000 seat arena that then I not only have to build it, but I have to do the upkeep and the maintenance. And then am I going to rent it out for other events, or am I just going to use it once a week or once every 2 weeks? And other times they got away with it in Mexico because of the, I'm sure, inexpensive construction costs, as well as the multitude of shows they ran, and the business was set up differently down there. But I mean, we did it with OVW because, and it was the idea to do with Ring of Honor under Sinclair, because now we're talking about an existing building that you can customize to seat 1,000 people. But in those days, a building that seated 1,000 or 2,000 people in one of the promotion's main towns wasn't going to do anybody any good. So it's a lot. And then plus you still have to go through building permits. And even for what we did in OVW, which was kind of like a glorified, television studio soundstage type of thing rather than an actual sports arena, there was the number of bathroom stalls and you have to have, and how far the urinal on the wall needs to be from this thing, and code and fire violations and staffing. And no, in this country, in the days of the territories, for the crowds that most of the promotions were drawing, that would have been a ridiculous expense. It would have been like building a new mid-sized sports arena in these towns.
I wonder how many wrestling promoters tried to use their influence on local politicians to say, hey, you're tearing down this building, replace it with something new or whatever. Sell it to us.
I don't know that ever came into their mind, to be honest. But, again, if the city owned something and was selling it, there was probably a reason why. Such as you need to practically redo this place from the start. But that was it even used to be in, like, I've seen spot show contracts that Crockett, and certainly we worked off a lot of Crockett's paperwork because Sandy Scott had it to do Smoky Mountain Wrestling paperwork. And some of the other territories that I've worked at, their letter going out to potential sponsoring groups like football teams and high schools, athletic boosters, whatever, to bring spot shows to town. The main thing was you have to be able to provide a building that seats at least 1,500 people, I think was the cutoff. They didn't want to, in those days, except if it was, Tupelo on a Friday night because everybody's got to be in town for Memphis TV 8 hours later, they didn't want to fuck with a building or running a show that couldn't draw 1,000 or 1,500 people in a small town.
All right, and that was Guess the Program.
Well, hold on there, cowboy. I think we got another one. I think we missed one.
Oh.
Hold on. I'm trying to wait a minute. Here it is. One more.
I haven't heard Pedro Godoy's name enough today.
Well, you won't hear it here, but you will hear another couple of interesting names. The first match, Tojo Yamamoto versus Billy Wicks.
Huh.
The second match, Tretch Phillips and Corsica Joe versus Lynn Rossi and Tony Belergian. The third match for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, Wilbur Snyder defends against a fellow named Kanji Inoki, who, as you well know, is Antonio Inoki. And the main event return 10-round boxing match, special referee Archie Moore. Alex Perez versus Prince Pullins.
All right. Well, it's definitely the Tennessee territory, I believe. A couple of interesting things make me think it could be a different town. I don't think it's Memphis because of Len Rossi being on the show. I know it's a weird thing, and not that he didn't wrestle in Memphis, but I'm thinking Nashville, not Memphis. 65. Nashville.
Boom!
Because Inoki.
Hold up, boom on the year, but not boom on the town. You fucking kayfabed yourself.
Memphis.
November 29, 1965 in Memphis. And part of the reason why Lynn Rossi may have been there is because Jerry Jarrett wasn't a thing yet. And we don't know for sure that Birmingham was running that night. That may have been, it wasn't a big thing for Lynn Rossi to be in. As a matter of fact, he'd been working a program the previous weeks with the mysterious medics who apparently were everywhere. And as a matter of fact, the following week, Inoki would team up with Hiro Matsuda against Lynn Rossi and Tony Belergian.
You know
But
what?
nevertheless,
You know what? We just got an email that was sent in asking about that letter you read on the show. That was Lance Russell's letter where he talked about his favorite match ever was a tag match with Matsuda and Inoki.
Yeah.
And the listener wanted to know where could that have possibly been from? That doesn't sound like a Memphis match. And here we are talking 1965. Both guys are there.
Well, and it was in Memphis because Inoki was sent by the Japanese promotion. What was the JWA, right? The original, to America in 1965, just like they would send all the other young guys. Baba went in 62? He was all over the country. The giant Baba from Japan.
As a main eventer. Yeah.
As a main eventer, wrestling for multiple world titles, NWA and others, because of his size. And that was completely unusual. And it was 15 years after the war. Well, Inoki didn't get that kind of treatment because he wasn't a giant, and he was sent to Memphis, and he worked the Tri-Cities territory in East Tennessee. He was in Johnson City and Kingsport. That's why in 1965, I said, that's a great answer to a trivia question. The people got to see Ron Wright, Whitey Caldwell, and Antonio Inoki.
Billy Wicks threw me off. Billy Wicks being there in 65 that late, because I kind of feel like, in my head, I almost feel like he went away after 61, but I know he still worked a lot of shows. Well, not a lot of shows.
Here's the thing. Billy Wicks was in this period of time that I'm looking at, September 27, October 4, October 11, October 18th. He's the opening match every week. He was working at the sheriff's department in Memphis, and he still wrestled locally. But at the same time, they weren't really doing anything with him, but he just, to keep his hand in and see the boys. But the Eddie Graham, the tag team changed. For example, Eddie Graham and Sam Steamboat were the recognized world tag team champions in Memphis in 1965. Here they wrestle Alex Perez and Tojo Yamamoto in 3 or 4 weeks in a row in a program. Buddy Fuller and Lester Welch were a top tag team at that point, and Lester Welch either later on or then did own part of Florida. The point is there was a talent exchange, and that's where Jerry Jarrett would have first gotten to know Eddie Graham, is when he was coming to Memphis in the mid-'60s. While he was establishing Florida, he was working with Nick and Roy and some of the other promoters, to make extra money to establish Florida and make contacts. So that tag team title match you're talking about that Lance mentioned in his letter did happen in Memphis, and he was there at the Coliseum to call it. But anyway, yes, point is November 29, 1965, and it was Memphis, and this was about 2 years before Jerry Jarrett started booking and became an influence. And that card, the newspaper reported it drew about 5,500 people, which was at the Ellis Auditorium, this before the Mid-South Coliseum, probably 2,000, 2,500 short of a sellout. But in Memphis, from what we can gather from they didn't list the attendance a lot in those days in the newspaper, but every so often you'd see 3,800, 4,000, 5,000. So that was about what Memphis was weekly through the 60s until Jarrett took over, and then they moved to the Coliseum in 72, and that expanded their capacity from around 7,500 or 8,000 up to 11,000 something. And here on February 15, 1965, and I'll give you back your fucking program, your show, Dick the Bruiser got arrested on February 15th, 1965 by Memphis police. Would you like to hear about it?
Yeah.
When officers J.D. Williams and E.O. Petrie went to the auditorium to police a wrestling match, they probably didn't anticipate they would pick up a few bruises of their own at the hands of Dick the Bruiser. The Bruiser, whose real name is Richard Alice, 30, of Indianapolis, was in Memphis last night to wrestle Pat O'Connor.
And that's not his real name.
No, it's Afflis, but
it's William. It's not even Richard.
Well, there you go. So, during the match, O'Connor got thrown out of the ring. I turned my back on the ring to keep the crowd off O'Connor when I was struck from behind by Dick the Bruiser, said Officer Williams in his report today. Officer Pittry, joining in the fray, got kicked by the Bruiser. The officers called for help and arrested Alice, escorted him first to his dressing room to change clothes and then to jail. Alice put up $26 forfeits each on charges of disorderly conduct and assault and battery, got out of jail, and then apologized to the officers. And what a card that was. Wilbur Snyder versus Ronnie Etchison, Dick the Bruiser versus Pat O'Connor, Alex Perez versus Rocky Smith, and for the World Tag Team title, Kurt and Carl Von Bronner with Saul Weingroff against Bobby and Lee Fields, the Fields brothers.
Hey, in terms of what we were talking about before with Atlanta, so obviously the Mid-South Coliseum opens. When did the Ellis Auditorium actually close?
Well, about the same time as the Mid-South Coliseum had been there. I'm not sure what year it opened.
It was there for the Beatles, so that was 65?
Around about 65, 64, the first American tour, 66, the big one. But wrestling had always been at Ellis Auditorium because that's where it had been since fucking 30s or 40s. And at that time, the audience, the promoters felt they wouldn't go to the Coliseum because downtown in those days, everybody walked. You didn't need public transportation. You didn't need a car. And especially the audience after the late 50s and Sputnik, the audience was heavily African-American. They all lived in the downtown area. The regular fans that had been accustomed to going to the Ellis for years and years would go there. The promoters didn't think that people would drive out to what was especially then the suburbs. Now Memphis is just huge, but the suburbs, pay for parking potentially, go to a different building. As Teeny used to say, the wrestling fan is a creature of habit. And changing buildings in a town almost never happened once one was established unless you had a really big show that had to go somewhere or you lost your other building like they did in Atlanta with City Auditorium. They did the same thing in Memphis with the Ellis Auditorium. That was torn down to make now what stands there, or what did stand there, I haven't been lately, was the Cook Convention Center, which Jarrett would run when the Coliseum wasn't available, like for the Mid-South Fair or certain things.
What about in 77?
Yeah, well, in 77, Nick's office still had the Mid-South Coliseum contract in his name. So when Jarrett split off, he knew he not only had to go to a new TV station, he had to go to a new building. And the only other building in town was the Cook Convention Center. And that period of time from April of 77 for about, 8-10 weeks until Nick gave up, those are the only wrestling events that have ever drawn at the Cook Convention Center. Jarrett was doing, according to the newspapers, Mr. Coffey was the manager. He may have sweetened it a little bit, but yeah, we've seen pictures and video. They were doing 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people in the Cook Convention Center because that was the only place to go see Lawler and the stars of Jarrett's program. Nick stayed at the Mid-South Coliseum and ran like 6 or 7 shows, and I think the last one got down to under 500 people in an 11,000 seat building. So he pulled out, and as soon as he pulled out, the Coliseum, who had wanted to do business with Jarrett anyway, immediately gave Jarrett the first date as soon as they heard Nick was pulling out. And that first date was April. Well, so it was 6 weeks. He split off the first part of March, and the first show that Jarrett ran in the Coliseum was April 24th. And that was with Rocky Johnson and Harley Race, Lawler and Jack Briscoe. Eddie Graham was a guest backstage. Dusty was on the show. He brought in everybody from the NWA, but Ron Fuller sent people from Knoxville. It was a big event, jacked up ticket prices to show that he was making a statement that he was the wrestling promotion in Memphis. But then after that, the only time, again, every time that he went to the Cook Convention Center, I was there on one show in 1982. The house was $14,000. That was maybe 2,500 to not even 3,000 people. And it was the fill-in place so the reverse became true. Once the people got used to going to the Mid-South Coliseum, they wouldn't go back downtown. And 10 years later, downtown had changed and was not the place in Memphis that you necessarily wanted to be late at night. So it kind of, what goes around comes around. But that's the situation is they were afraid to move, but once that they did, it didn't even take a year, and they had a sellout with Jackie Fargo and Al Green in the hair match. That was Jarrett's first big push to sell out the Mid-South Coliseum in 1972.
Well, there it is. Guess the program. I think I did all right.
You did pretty good. You did better than I thought you were going to.
Well, I don't know what that says, but, after something like this, I'm not going to lie, I'm very much considering just going to sleep.
Well, you're going to have to find something to keep you awake, because we already know what can put you to sleep. Besides the sound of my voice, that's our friends at Beam and the delicious product that they have manufactured to make all of us have a restful night's sleep. If you're not sleeping good, Brian, it can cause weight gain, mood issues, poor mental health, lower productivity, felony charges. All of those things can come from not getting enough sleep. If you sleep less than 6 to 7 hours a night, it's linked to a reduced white blood cell count. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but if you don't sleep enough, you don't have enough white blood cells, and then you can't fight off the illness and diseases and viruses and bacteria and famines and plagues that are all around, the monkeypox. So you got to get a good night's sleep. And with Beam, you don't even have to do it naturally. You can let them do it for you. The good old-fashioned way, with drugs. No, folks, there's no drugs involved in this.
No, there's no drugs involved in this, and it's not the good old-fashioned way. What's wrong with you?
I beat you with that. There's no drugs involved in this. What this is natural sleep-promoting premium ingredients. They've been triple lab tested. There's no THC, but don't let that stop you, folks. You wake up refreshed. As a matter of 98% of people surveyed fall asleep faster when taking Beam Dream, and 99% of people experience better sleep quality. It's just that nagging 1% that wake up in Turkish prisons 6 months later with a long beard.
No, that's
all you got to do. It's delicious, delicious hot cocoa. All you got to do is mix the Beam Dream powder into hot water or milk. Milk gives a little more body. You just stir it up and you enjoy it right before bedtime. Right before bedtime, right before a major surgery. If you're going to have your lungs taken out, take a sip of this Beam Dream. They won't even have to give you the anesthetic, folks. Propofol ain't got nothing on this shit. If Michael Jackson had known about Beam, we'd still be not stopping till we got enough to this very day.
Yes, we would. He was a pedophile.
I forgot about that part. Well, you can find out, folks, why Forbes and the New York Times are all talking about Beam, not Michael Jackson or any allegations, but they're talking about Beam. And if you don't love it, you can get your money back guaranteed. If you can find these people, it's a lot easier to order something off the website and send them money. But nevertheless, they'll give you your money back guaranteed if you don't love it. And we use it here at the house. I sleep like a baby. Wake up once an hour crying and pissing the bed. But Stacy loves it. She swears by it. I see her cup of Beam constantly sitting there waiting for whenever she's tired of listening to me. She just takes a sip of that, falls over face first in the TV room, and I just kind of throw a blanket over her and leave her laying there until she gets up and wanders off. But if you can't fall asleep or wake up during the night or don't wake up refreshed or have side effects of no sleep, or if you're addicted to chemical sleep aids or noisy neighbors that wake you up with their wild, perverted sex parties, please send your address and phone number to me. Or if you think sleep aids make you groggy or you can't sleep when you travel, all these things can be helped, assisted even by the beneficial compounds naturally found in CBD, which is involved in the Beam premium product. It's a functional wellness brand, Beam is, that makes products for sleep, calm, focus, energy, hydration, and recovery. So there's all kinds of products that you can benefit from in addition to the Dream Powder. You got to go to see all of these things at shopbeam.com. That's BEAM, shopbeam.com/JCE. Use the code JCE at checkout and get $20 off. Shopbeam.com/JCE. Use the code JCE for $20 off of the Beam Dream Powder. And then let us know if you remember how you do and how you like it. Shopbeam.com/ after you /JCE, get out of the car, cut off your Slauson, use the code JCE, get $20 off. I'm telling you, you won't know what hit you, folks, when you get good sleep at night.
Nothing will hit you. You'll know what it is. It's Beam, and it's wonderful.
That's what I said. You won't know what hit you. Nothing will hit you. That's why you won't know. Beam.